This is a Fox News alert as House investigators get serious in their probe of the anti-Trump dossier. Fox News can now report that they are seeking contempt citations against the FBI and the Justice Department for refusing to cooperate. Welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom. I'm Sandra Smith. Good morning. Busy morning.
Sure is, right? Hang on. I'm Bill Hemmer. Good morning, everybody. Fox News learning exclusively that a senior counsel for the House Intelligence Committee is urging the contempt charges against the FBI and Department of Justice for withholding documents, as well as a key witness. James Rosen, chief Washington correspondent, breaking this story last evening. And James, good morning to you. And
good morning.
Picked up some immediate reaction. What have you heard?
Yes, Bill, it would appear that President Trump saw Fox News break this story on Special Report with Bret Baier last night, because within 2 hours, Mr. Trump tweeted about it, calling it, quote, big stuff, saying it reflected the, quote, deep state at work, and adding, give this information, caps with an exclamation mark, now. At issue is the infamous dossier of salacious and largely unverified allegations against then-candidate Trump and others around him that was compiled across 2016 by the opposition research firm Fusion GPS, bankrolled by the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee, and the report based in part on Russian sources. Now, Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, Republican of California, has spent 8 months seeking answers and documents from DOJ and FBI about the use of the dossier by those agencies once they received it in early July 2016, and particularly whether it was the basis for FISA surveillance on a Trump campaign official.
We're not there yet, so we're trying to work with DOJ and the FBI. We hope that they will comply, but if they don't, they leave us very few options. We've asked since March to have this information. We sent subpoenas out in June, July, and August that still haven't been complied with, so I think stonewalling would be putting it lightly.
DOJ officials responded to the president's tweet with this statement to Fox News, quote, the department has provided members of HPSI, that's the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, and House leadership with any number of documents and multiple briefings related to this matter, including the documents related to any FBI payments that may or may not have been made to the source in question, and has more recently cleared a key witness they have requested to testify. Now, sources tell us that witness is Andrew McCabe, who briefly served as acting director of the FBI this year, following his appointment as deputy director. Sandra.
And James, tell us why it's highly unusual to see a Republican-led committee doing this.
Well, because we're talking here, of course, about a Republican-appointed Attorney General and a Republican-appointed FBI Director, and perhaps for that reason, Fox News has learned that House Speaker Paul Ryan is said to be working to use his good offices to help advance and resolve this conflict, as Congress also has other pressing items on the year-end agenda. Sandra.
All right, James Rosen breaking that story for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
From that alert to another alert now. President Trump now stepping up his efforts to get tax reform done. But will it happen? Senate Republicans continue debating their bill ahead of a vote on the floor that could come this week. The president making clear from Missouri that failure is not an option.
We cannot sit idly by and watch ourselves losing in competition to other countries as they continue to take away our jobs because their tax codes are more competitive and less burdensome than ours. A vote to cut taxes is a vote to put America first again. We want to do that. We want to put America first again. It's time to take care of our workers, to protect our community. Christmas present.
That from late yesterday, this from today now. Mike Emanuel picks up the story live on the Hill. So what do you think, Mike? Where are we now? Do they have the votes?
Well, Bill, good morning to you. Many Republican senators sound very upbeat, but they clearly are not popping champagne just yet. This hour, top Republican leaders in the Senate and the Small Business Administrator, Linda McMahon, are doing an event to talk about the impact this tax reform package would have on job creators in this country. And while a number of Republican senators have been a maybe, it sounds like as the vote is getting closer, they recognize they must get this done.
I like the movement so far. I think Senator Corker was obviously satisfied as well. So the movement's in the right direction, and we absolutely need pro-growth tax reform. It's just table stakes.
We're making some good progress. My voice is being heard. There's a few of us that are fighting on behalf of those voices that don't oftentimes get to Washington, D.C. because they're too busy running their family businesses. And I'm pleased with the progress being made. We're getting close, not quite there yet.
Both Johnson and Daines have expressed concerns about the impact on small businesses, and so this event this hour may be designed to address those concerns. Bill.
So the last 24 hours, we're hearing some rumblings about some critical Democrats. Where are they rather at this stage, Mike?
Well, it's interesting because a number of Democrats sound frustrated because they recognize if Republicans stick together, there's little they can do to have an impact. Others say they wish they had had more outreach from the GOP.
I think we've got a big missed opportunity here, Maria, where we could have done bipartisan tax reform, but we haven't been included in the process of developing this tax bill. It's being done by one party only, and that doesn't usually produce a great product, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans who produce the product.
Republican sources say if the GOP can demonstrate it has 50 yes votes for tax reform, that perhaps a handful of Democrat senators from states President Trump won may join them in supporting the bill. Bill.
Thank you, Mike. Watch it, right? Little shift
Yes,
every day as we go along. Thank you, Sandra.
More on this now with Brett Behar, anchor of Special Report. Brett, good morning. Thanks for coming on this morning. All right, so this could be a big day. Tomorrow could be a big day. They're all big days. The clock is ticking. Will they get to yes?
Well, I think we're closer to yes, or the feeling up on Capitol Hill, as Mike mentioned, is on the Republican side that there is a yes feeling. There's several senators in different stages of maybe. What's interesting to point out is what Mike just mentioned was that these Democrats from states where Donald Trump won 70, 80% of the counties or more are up for re-election in 2018. And these Democrats have voted not even to start the talk, the debate on tax reform. I mean, that's not a great pitch back home to say, yes, I'm for some of this stuff, but I'm not going to even vote to start to debate it. That's really an interesting thing, I think. And what also Mike mentioned at the end is if Republicans start to coalesce and the numbers start to come together, you could see 5, 6, 7 Democrats who say, you know what, I am for that.
Because it does appear that those Republicans that have been on the fence, they're looking for certain changes, and it really feels like they're coming around here. Are you getting that same sense?
I am. It's a dangerous time, though. Once you start tweaking one way, you potentially lose something over here, and it's like three-dimensional chess. You know, I mean, you move a piece, and there's other pieces that move. But it does seem like they're in a better position than they were with Obamacare repeal and replace. And while John McCain is still a questionable factor, which way he's going to go, the numbers may be that he won't be the factor in the end.
And you just heard from the president saying failure is not an option. Can you give us an idea of just how much is at stake here politically if it does get done or it doesn't?
If it doesn't, I think Republicans have a really hard pitch to make. I mean, it does not fit on a bumper sticker that you didn't get a big piece of legislation through when you control the House, the Senate, and the White House. If it does, I think there will be, pitches to be made to counter the Democrats who will say that the middle class didn't get as much as they should have in this deal. But the big test will be whether the engine of the economy decides that that's going to take it off again, and that's what the administration.
Speaking of which, I'm sure you noticed the Dow this morning topping 24,000. So there's a lot of anticipation that something's going to get done here. Other things leading to that rally, of course. But Brett, before you go, I want to ask you about James Rosen's reporting leading into this. He broke on Fox News House investigators seeking contempt citations against the DOJ, the FBI over this anti-Trump dossier.
I think it's a big deal, a really big deal. And, they're considering it. They're not actually launching it. But the fact that they're even talking about it is significant. Remember, this is the Trump FBI, DOJ. And the fact that they're having this hard of a time and the fact that the House Speaker's office and the Speaker himself are engaged in this is very significant. One quick thing, Sandra, and this is a New York Times piece that's moving right now, which is that the president, according to them, and their sources has decided that Rex Tillerson needs to leave at state and that he'll be replaced by Mike Pompeo and that Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas will go to the CIA. We've heard this chess game and this proposal for a while. If in fact it happens, it's likely going to be after the new year, I'm told, but we're not 100% that it's locked in.
In the words of that New York Times piece, it's not immediately clear whether Trump had given final approval of that plan, but has been said to have soured on Rex Tillerson in general. We'll see where that report goes. Meanwhile, I have to tell you this. 3 days in January, out in paperback this week, Brett Behar. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a good stocking stuffer, right?
Absolutely. A wonderful idea for all. Brett Behar, we appreciate your time.
All right, we'll see you.
Sure is. Congrats, Brett. And more to come, too. Tease, right? Meanwhile, as we've been saying, the moment of truth fast approaching the Senate. Senator John Barrasso in a moment about where they are today on the vote. So stay tuned for that. Plus, there's this now.
Breaking news this morning on embattled Democratic Congressman John Conyers has now been hospitalized amid growing allegations of sexual misconduct. The details on that as we get them straight ahead.
Also, President Trump and the British Prime Minister Theresa May in a war of words over some recent tweets this week by the president. What the White House is saying about that now.
The threat is real. The threat needs to be addressed. The threat has to be talked about, and that's what the president is doing in bringing that up.
So it doesn't matter if it's a fake video?
Look, I'm not talking about the nature of the video. I think you're focusing on the wrong thing. The threat is real, and that's what the president is talking about, is the need for national security, the need for military spending, and those are very real things. There's nothing fake about that.
Sarah Sanders saying the media is focusing on the wrong thing in slamming the retweets President Trump sent out early yesterday morning. The president retweeting these anti-Muslim videos originally posted by a far right-wing British group called Britain First. Now the president is firing back at British Prime Minister Theresa May for calling him out over that move. First, here's the Prime Minister from earlier today.
The fact that we work together does not mean that we're afraid to say when we think the United States have got it wrong, and to be very clear with them. And I'm very clear that retweeting from Britain First was the wrong thing to do.
Well, let's bring in Steve Hilton, host of The Next Revolution. Always good to see you, Steve. So did the president get it wrong here?
I think, you know what, on this situation, Sandra, I think it's one of those occasions where the right thing to do is for concerned with fighting Islamophobia than with actually fighting Islamist terrorism. That's a serious argument, and you can make it in a serious way, but this is not the right way to have that argument or to make those points. I just think everyone should try and move on from this as quickly as possible, because no good is going to come from it.
Well, that isn't exactly happening, because the president has chosen to take to Twitter on this and send a message directly to Theresa May saying, at Theresa May, don't focus on me, focus on the destructive radical Islamic terrorism that is taking place within the United Kingdom. We are doing just fine, he says, I should say, to her. Steve?
Yeah, I think that, again, within that is a good point. This just isn't, you're never going to get that point across in this kind of argument, which is all conflated with Twitter and videos that clearly come from a source that is completely beyond the pale, and no one should indulge that source. And I think that that's very clear. But there's a really good point there. And there's a point, again, that I've made. I've been very critical of Theresa May when I used to work in the British government when she was Home Secretary, and I think that it's true to say that for many, many years in Britain, the threat of radicalization and extremism in many communities was just not taken seriously enough. That's a really, really important point. And so that's a point that if you're going to make that point, make it in a serious, proper way. I think it's one of the biggest threats. I think everyone can see that the world faces, and it's not going to be dealt with in this kind of fashion. And I think that the way that everyone's kind of jumping in on this, on both sides, frankly, and trying to elevate it rather than lower the temperature is just not helpful.
So the mayor of London has decided to say that the president is no longer welcome there after this retweeting of the vile group, as he put it. He said it's increasingly clear that any official visit from President Trump to Britain would not be welcomed. So you wonder what effect this is going to have on U.S. relations with Britain.
I think practically no effect, frankly. You've seen in the last 24 hours, behind the kind of the headlines, you've seen members of the British cabinet going out and making that point. The Home Secretary Amber Rudd has made that point, that this is not going to affect the cooperation between Britain and the US in any way. Other members of the cabinet have said that. Remember that the Mayor of London represents a political constituency, a part of the UK, which is very liberal in its political views. It's very hostile to President Trump, and he's always taken this position. So this is not the first time that he's used his political platform to attack the president, and that plays very well for him in the place that he represents, which is London, which is the equivalent politically of one of the liberal big East Coast cities here in America. So I'm not at all surprised that he did that the Mayor of London said that. But again, we shouldn't take it too seriously. There is a serious issue here, which is what are we doing?
There's a bigger message, right?
And
you're always good at that, Steve. You know, we get mired down in these day-to-day things, and as you hear the White House and the president and Sarah Sanders say, you know, they're focusing on the wrong thing. So what is the broader message here? What's the bigger takeaway?
I think the bigger takeaway is that this is a really long-term threat to our security and our society, the threat from this ideology of Islamist extremism that has infected Islam. And for those people who try and pretend that it's got nothing to do with Islam and that we should just treat it as a criminal justice thing, they're completely wrong. This threat has been building for around 100 years, and it has emerged from a particular strain of Islam. We've got to take it seriously, and it means that we've got to change our attitude on things like immigration, on fighting it in terms of community cohesion and the way we respond to it from our security services. It is something that is really serious. And that's why I think this kind of argument just doesn't help us in advancing that cause, which is so important to all of us.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Steve. We can catch you Sunday nights, The Next Revolution with Steve Hilton. Thank you for joining us here This Morning.
Thanks, Sandra. See you soon.
All right. In a moment here, 20 minutes past the hour, allegations of sexual misconduct and harassment sweeping through Hollywood and the American media. Meanwhile, the nation's longest-serving congressman still on the job amid multiple accusations of his own. Does Congress play under different rules or not? Closer look at that coming up.
Plus, police now ramping up their search for a missing 3-year-old girl taken from her bedroom. The latest on this evolving investigation next.
Priority number one is to find Mariah, and we are asking the public's help in the local and surrounding community for anyone that has had contact with the family from Sunday on to please contact us with any information.
Well, the hunt for a missing 3-year-old girl in North Carolina is intensifying after a photo put out by the FBI ended up being a false lead. Now police are stepping up their search for Mariah Woods, who was taken from her bedroom Sunday night.
Our intention is to search everything that we can search. So, you know, we have been very active, but as the investigation goes on, we continue to search in expanding circles. We will search whatever, and I think that's where the public can be very helpful.
Mariah Woods was reported missing from her home around 6 a.m. on Monday. Police are asking anyone with any information to please come forward.
25 past the hour now. Hollywood, the American media rocked by sexual harassment and assault scandals. And Capitol Hill is not getting away clean either. But is Silicon Valley next? William Lajeunesse live in L.A. with more on that today. William, good morning.
Good morning, Bill. Well, the culture of inappropriate relationships and harassment reportedly got so bad at Google, the company had to institute a new mandate that any VP or above must report a romantic relationship to HR, even if they worked in different departments. But even that policy was routinely ignored, according to a lengthy expose on the tech website, The Information, which describes a toxic workplace where older, powerful, senior male executives dated or had affairs with younger women, leading to an atmosphere of resentment and distrust and hostility. The website said it drew those conclusions after interviewing 40 current and former employees. Now, in response, Google's culture officer released this statement saying, quote, "In the past, well, the past was the past, and we're putting an enormous amount of time into moving forward. We talked about how nobody has a hall pass, no matter what level you are. We investigate and take appropriate action." Now, most of the relationships described in the article do not involve sexual assault or coercion, but rather allege that supervisory men preying upon aspiring younger subordinate women who felt compelled to comply or face retaliation. Many HR experts say, there is a difference, but the effect on morale is the same, and both, of course, are inappropriate. Now, Google is a notoriously tight-lipped company. It is not press-friendly. We reached out, Bill, but as of this morning, no comment yet. Back to you.
William, thank you. In L.A. today, William Lajeunesse.
Brand new video coming in from North Korea showing off its latest missile. Can this missile really reach the entire U.S. mainland? A live report next.
Also, Sandra, the Senate heading into the home stretch in its push for tax reform. Will it pass? Do they have the votes? Will they give the president his biggest legislative victory so far of his presidency? Senator John Barrasso is on deck to tell us where we are today. Coming up.
Republicans in Congress campaigned on cutting taxes. If we do this, then America will win again like never, ever before. To launch our plan to bring back Main Street by cutting taxes for American families and small businesses. Today, I've come back to this incredible state to spend an afternoon with its amazing citizens. You are amazing. To help push our plan for historic tax cuts right across that finish line. We're going to do that.
All right, President Trump in Missouri late yesterday talking up that tax plan. Senate moving closer to a final vote, but with so much hanging in the balance. Can Republicans get this across the finish line? Senator John Barrasso out of Wyoming, chairman of the Senate Republican Policy Committee. And, sir, how are you? And good morning to you.
Thanks for having me, Bill.
You're a yes vote, correct?
I am. We have a unified conference, if you saw the headlines today, and the American economy has now hit full stride for the first time in 10 years. I'm looking very much forward to casting a vote in favor of this. I believe we will pass it tonight.
Tonight?
Well, we are going to be starting the final process tonight. There'll be amendments. There'll be discussion. I mean, it may go into tomorrow, but we are unified in our effort to keep our promises to lower rates, to simplify the tax system, and to focus on an American economy bringing jobs home, something that is good for families and something that is good for Main Street as well.
So you believe you're at 50 votes, with Mike Pence being the tiebreaker in that. That's what you're saying.
We had 52 votes yesterday, unanimous, united conference to move to the bill. We had a very good luncheon visit with the president on Tuesday. People are committed to getting this done. It's the right thing to do for the economy.
52 votes to advance the bill to the floor, but do you believe you have 50 votes to pass it?
No, I believe we do. We're all working to get to yes. There are a couple things that are needing to be worked out, which we'll do through the amendment process tonight. We've seen the stories. There are concerns about whether there should be a trigger or not. I think that if the economy is growing even faster than the budget counters say it's going to be growing, I think we should trigger with a tax reduction. I oppose any kind of trigger that puts new taxes on. There's some debates about how much of a child tax credit, but we've doubled the child tax credit. So I think that is a big plus of the bill.
You like a trigger, just economically speaking. Is that a good idea when you can snap back tax cuts?
No, I am opposed to any trigger that snaps back tax cuts. If there is a trigger of any sort, I would want it to say if the economy is growing, which I believe it will be doing even faster than the budget people say it's going to be growing, that then we should give even more tax cuts to the American people. Let them keep even more of their hard-earned money. I mean, that to me is a Republican approach, a conservative approach.
We're watching Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader on the floor of the Senate there. We'll see what he says about this. Couple things just to poke at your argument a little bit here. I've heard a lot of members of Congress who support this, House and Senate side, saying CEOs are going to bring jobs back and bring a lot of money back from overseas. But they always seem to throw in a caveat like they hope and that's their intent. Well, that's not a solid strategy. And there is no guarantee, because you as a senator, you can't pass a law and dictate to American businesses what they will do in the best interest of their companies. Yeah, a few of them might build a few plants, but others, they could buy stock back with that money. They could do dividends back for their shareholders. My point is, you don't know how the companies will react. What assurance can you give the American people today that this will have the effect that you've been talking about?
What I know, Bill, is that from the day that Donald Trump was elected president a little over a year ago, we've had 2 million new jobs added to the economy. Not from Inauguration Day, but from Election Day, because of the amount of positive optimism, the confidence that came back to this country with Donald Trump's election to President of the United States. We've seen that certainly in Wyoming. We've seen it all across the country. We've done it with regulatory relief, and now tax relief is the next step. I believe we are ready to really have the economy grow at a much faster rate. We are now on the cusp of a very strong and healthy economy that lets people keep more of their hard-earned money. That's what this is all about.
Not
it's
everybody.
About keeping our promises.
You know, some people are going to be paying more in taxes, and that's pretty much been fleshed out by a lot of the studies before this bill is even brought to the floor. But, you know, we had these debates constantly during the Obamacare battle, and you and others talked often about a redistribution of wealth through Obamacare, taking it from some and giving it to others to create the new health care policy. And I know you were against that then. So could some make the argument that this is just another form of redistribution? If some middle-income Americans are going to pay more, if some high earners will certainly pay more in places like New Jersey and New York and California and Connecticut, is that not redistribution of another name?
No, absolutely not. Redistribution is a pie of a fixed size, and you're cutting the pieces and seeing how you do that. What we're talking about with a stronger, healthier economy is a growing pie. That's the way everyone can succeed. That's what this is all about. Economic growth way beyond the tepid 1.8% that we saw of the Obama administration. We've had the last 2 quarters of economic growth over 3%. That needs to be the new normal, not what President Obama delivered at 1.8%. And when you bring up the health care law...
Yeah, please continue. Explain that.
When you talk about the health care law, we are eliminating the most hated part of the health care law, the mandate that says people have to buy a government-demanded product. In Wyoming, we've had over 16,000 people who had to pay this fine or this tax across the country. Not just 16,000 in Wyoming, over 6 million people have had to pay that fine. Billions of dollars paid in. Why? Because they can't afford the Obama mandated insurance. We're going to eliminate that completely as part of the tax reform legislation that's in front of the American people today.
Have you spoken to Senator McCain?
I speak with him regularly, have traveled the world
is he on board or
with
not?
him. He voted for the motion to proceed to this, which is a good sign. He's been holding his cards close. I know he wants to see how the amendment process works out. He'll be able to cast his final vote, as will all of the members later today or tomorrow. But I have great confidence in John McCain and his commitment to getting tax reform done that helps the American families.
Thank you, sir. I know you think it's a good bill. We'll see in the end if it passes whether or not that is the case in the new year. John McCain, moments ago, Republican from Wyoming.
North Korea releasing new footage of its latest ballistic missile test showing dictator Kim Jong-un overseeing the launch. The North claims their newest missile could strike anywhere in the U.S. Greg Palcott is live in London. Greg, are these images revealing anything new about the launch?
Interesting stuff. We've been speaking to one of our top rocket experts on North Korea, and to paraphrase his reaction after seeing these images, wow, it confirms to him and it confirms to others that North Korea has made a dangerous leap forward in missile development. Instead of one engine in the first stage of this ICBM, there are 2. The second stage, much more powerful than past models. The guidance system more sophisticated, allowing the range of this missile to extend well into mainland United States, and seeming to back up the claims of the regime of Kim Jong-un. The nose cone is bigger and more rounded, able to handle large, maybe multiple nuclear payloads, and perhaps better survive the re-entry. Dangerous stuff, Sandra.
Greg, what could this all mean regarding the U.S. strategy in dealing with North Korea?
Well, the response, Sandra, of the Trump administration has been fast and strong. We heard from its U.S. ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, late yesterday at a special session of the UN Security Council following this launch, calling on all countries to sever all ties with North Korea, threatening to destroy the regime of Kim Jong-un if it made any offensive moves. However, we've also been speaking to a few other voices. They have kind of a counterintuitive take on this. They even see this as a possible opening. The regime is declaring victory now. They say they've established a rocket state. They say they have a nuclear state. Perhaps, according to some of these people that I've been speaking to, Pyongyang might be in a position to begin talking, to begin negotiations. But of course, Sandra, that is all based on the folks in Pyongyang being rational. Back